In Jewish thought, to name a child was to exercise legal fatherhood. By naming Jesus, therefore, Joseph incorporates him into the line of David, fulfilling the promises spoken through the prophets. As Advent draws to a close, the church places before us a mystery whispered in obedience, silence, and trust. We are invited to contemplate a righteous man wrestling with fear, faith, and the will of God. Today, the figure who stands before us is Joseph, the husband of Mary. The gospel tells us that Mary was found to be with a child before they lived together. To understand Joseph's fear, we must enter the Jewish legal and cultural world of the time. Marriage in first century Judaism occurred in two stages: betrothal and the bringing of the bride into the husband's home. During betrothal, the couple was already legally married, even though they did not yet live together. Infidelity during this period was considered adultery, and according to the law, could result in severe punishment. Early Christian writers and scholars suggest that Joseph's fear was not rooted in disbelief of Mary, but in reverence before a mystery too great for him. Some rabbinic traditions and later patristic interpretations suggest that Joseph recognized that something divine was at work. Like Moses before the burning bush, he may have felt unworthy to stand on holy ground. St. Bernard of Clairvaux famously wrote that Joseph's hesitation sprang from humility. He feared to take upon himself a role that belonged to God. Thus, Joseph resolves to separate quietly, not to punish, but to protect Mary and to step back from what he perceives as a divine mystery beyond him. And it is precisely there, in Joseph's silence and struggle, that God speaks. Joseph, son of David, do not be afraid to take Mary, your wife. Fear is dispelled not by explanation alone, but by vocation. Joseph is not merely reassured, he is commissioned. He is told that the child is conceived by the Holy Spirit, and he is given a decisive role. You shall name him Jesus. In Jewish thought, to name a child was to exercise legal fatherhood. By naming Jesus, therefore, Joseph incorporates him into the line of David, fulfilling the promises spoken through the prophets. God's plan of salvation comes to pass not only through miraculous conception, but through obedient human cooperation. The angel tells Joseph to name the child Jesus, from the Hebrew word Yeshua, meaning the Lord saves. This is not a symbolic title, it is a mission statement, as the Catechism of the Catholic Church teaches. The name Jesus signifies that the very name of God is present in the person of his Son, CCC 432. Jesus does not merely announce salvation, he is salvation in the flesh. St. Paul echoes this in the second reading, proclaiming that Jesus Christ is descended from David according to the flesh, yet established as Son of God in power. The child Joseph receives is fully human, yet divine, born into history, yet eternal. Matthew then draws our eyes back to Isaiah's prophecy. The virgin shall conceive and bear a son, and they shall name him Emmanuel. Emmanuel means God with us, not God above us, but God entering our fear, our vulnerability, and our human history. According to St. Irenaeus, in Emmanuel, God recapitulates humanity, entering fully into our condition in order to heal it from within. St. Athanasius would later say, God became what we are, that we might become what he is. Emmanuel is the definitive answer to every human loneliness and fear. As Advent comes to its final days, the Church invites us to learn from Joseph. Joseph teaches us that faith does not always begin with clarity, but with obedience. He teaches us that God's will often unfolds in silence. And he teaches us that salvation enters the world not through force, but through trust. Joseph awakens from his sleep and does exactly as the angel commanded. No hesitation, only action. In that obedience, Emmanuel enters the world. From today's readings, 3 lessons present themselves to us. First, God often works through our fears, not despite them. Joseph's fear became the doorway to his vocation of adopting Jesus into the Davidic genealogy. When we bring our uncertainties to God instead of running from them, grace transforms them into mission. Second, salvation comes through obedience, not full understanding. Joseph did not receive all the answers. He received a command. Faith means trusting God enough to act before everything makes sense. Third, Emmanuel is not only a title for Christ, it is a promise for us. God remains with us in our homes, our struggles, our doubts, and our waiting. As Christmas approaches, the question is not whether God will come, but whether we will make room for him. Dear friends, as we stand at the edge of Christmas, may we learn from Joseph to trust in silence, to obey in faith, and to welcome Emmanuel, God with us, into the ordinary spaces of our lives. And like Joseph, may we rise and do what the Lord asks of us. Amen. God bless you.